few moments later.
Saan nagsimulang magbago ang lahat? Kailan nung ako'y di na naging sapat? Ba't di mo sinabi nung una pa lang?
Uy! Ano kang bumit? Wala mang good kaya yan. Wala mang kaya dito eh. Ang sakoy! Pagkatad ko ni mama ng sibuyas. Sabi naman sa bakit kayo? Buyas ang mahilak ka. Ang narangan.
One eternity later.
Today everyone, my name is Angela and I'm here to discuss about why does onion make us cry? So, have you ever experienced during the times when your mother, or particularly when you are cutting an onion, and it just makes you suddenly burst out in tears and get so emotional? So I'm here to answer that question for you today. So, what is an onion anyway? An onion is a delicious root vegetable member of the genus Allium, along with garlic, leeks, chives, and some 400 other species. When we actually plant something, it doesn't just absorb water and sunlight, it also sucks up nutrients from the soil. Good soil contains organic matter that plants can absorb, such as nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon, and sulfur, which this bulbous fleshy vegetable tends to absorb a lot of. When we cut open an onion, we're actually breaking up its cell structure, allowing amino acid sulfoxide to form sulfenic acid. It also releases the enzyme lacrimatory factor synthase, which reacts with the sulfonic acid to form an syn-propanethiol S oxide. As the chemical rises into the air, it eventually meets the tears already present inside our eyes. There are actually three types of tears. The first one is the emotional tears or psychic tears. That's the tear that we cry whenever we feel sad. The second one is the basal tears, which are constantly replenished to keep our eyes lubricated. And the third one is the reflexive tears, which flushes the eye in response to an irritant like an acid. So tears contain water, mucus, oil, and nutrients for the eye cells, and an antibacterial lysosomes. When syn-propanethiol S oxide hits the water inside our eyes, it rearranges yet again, forming sulfuric acid. Imagine this, battery acid inside our eyes. Crazy, right? So we cry every time we cut an onion open because the enzymes create battery acid inside our eyes. I know what you're probably thinking right now. Why don't we just breed this nightmare ingredient out of onions? Well, you can actually refrigerate the onions to slow down the chemical reaction and to reduce crying, but getting rid of it altogether would involve breeding it out. And previous studies of onion biology concluded that the onion's flavor and acid reaction were actually linked. So, they were thought to come apart in the enzyme called alliinase. So, if we actually breed out alliinase from the onion, then the onion wouldn't taste an onion at all. Then, in 2002, a study in Nature found out that this might be not all true. Instead, they believe that quote, yet undiscovered enzyme is at work inside of onions. Then, onions is actually confining science. Crazy, right? Actually, scientists are currently studying to genetically modify onions that produces less syn-propanethiol S oxide, so that they won't make us cry as much. In the meantime, here are some tips that you can try at home to lessen the tears in your eye every time you cut open an onion. Tip number 1. Refrigerate onions. Store onion in the fridge for a few hours. The idea here is that the cold temperature are supposed to slow down the release of synpropanethiol S oxide to minimize the amount of crying. Tip number 2. Remove onion root. Most of the sulfurous gas is contained within the root of the onion. Carefully try to remove it before cutting the onion. Tip number 3. Cut onions in quarters and wait. Cut onions in 2 quarters and leave them to sit for a while. Come back to cut them later. The idea is most of the sulfurous gas is going to be released in the environment. Then, you can bring it back after 10 to 15 minutes later to continue cutting it. Tip number 4. Wear goggles. If you have a seal over your eyes, the gases wouldn't be able to reach the eyes. By protecting the eyes from the irritating chemicals of that onion releases, you shouldn't be able to cry at all. And lastly, tip number 5. Don't fear the tear. Sometimes in life you just have to man up. Sometimes it's nice to have a cry and just embrace it. Just get right into the onions and enjoy the gas. And that's about it for my video today. Hope that you enjoy watching and you learned something new and meaningful to my video. Thank you guys for watching up until the end. I really appreciate your support. That's all. This is Angela Louise Chica Evans saying goodbye.